Hi, this is Annie Owens, and welcome to My Dimensional Life. Today, we're going to touch upon a subject that is kind of difficult for a lot of people, and myself in particular. We're going to talk about the paranormal and about spirits and how some of them that unalive themselves end up going through and processing things. But first, please do like and subscribe, and please share this with others that might need to hear it. I actually wasn't even going to do a video tonight, and I've been pushed and pushed. I believe that there's somebody out there that really needs to hear this, that may help them in the decisions that they make in their life. What happened with me is my husband works out of state, and he ended up meeting somebody at one of the places he worked, and it was a person that was having almost a mental breakdown. I guess the person that they were engaged, I'm not supposed to say that word here. Somebody who they were engaged to had unalived themselves. And anyways, in the process, they were engaged. He had kids. It was a bad breakup with the spouse. It was the kids were being taken away to where he was feeling like he was never going to see him again. He had hurt himself at work. There was so many different things that had actually taken place before he had gotten to that point. And on top of that, he was already inebriated, been drinking a lot, and on top of that, pain pills with everything going on. And it had been over a year since he had actually unalived himself, and she was having a very difficult time. She obviously is very receptive to energy, and she always felt like he was around her, and that was causing these breakdowns that she was having. So anyways, my husband got a hold of me because he had asked her, have you gotten medication for this? Trying to get help for her because she was just so low to the point that she couldn't function. And I guess she had tried everything, and nothing she could do would actually help her. She says that she just felt very strongly that he was still around her. And so my husband got a hold of me and said, I think I got somebody who can help you. And got a hold of me, and she and I actually talked about it. And I told her, well, let me see what I can do and what information that I can find out that may actually be able to help you with this. And so I was really tired that day. I said, I need your information of his name, and I need a picture of him. That way I can visualize it while I am meditating to where I can connect with them. As I told you before, this void that I go to, it allows me the connection between both sides. Those who have passed and those who are still alive, I can still connect in this plane with them. We'll get more into that when we go into more of the other stories. But nevertheless, what ended up happening was with her, I was very tired, and I said, I will try to help. And that night, I had already worked a full day. I was really exhausted. And so I go into meditation, and I'm deep in this meditation, and I go to that void, and I'm calling for him. I'm imagining what he looks like because of the picture. I'm focusing on him. I'm focusing on his name, and I'm calling and calling and calling for him. I was so tired that in the midst of meditation, I passed out. I went to sleep. But then I started waking up, and as I started waking up, there was a man standing at the foot of my bed. Now, for the normal person, this would be kind of really scary. I've kind of gotten used to it because I've dealt with so many paranormal things. But I saw the man there, and it was a dark figure, but at the same time, I saw a very light, thin glow around his person as he's standing there. And I couldn't really see his name, but I knew that that was him, the one that I had been calling, and he actually said, help me. Please help me. And as he's saying that, I'm blinking as I'm waking up, and I'm actually looking at him. And as I'm blinking, all of a sudden, that's when he just kind of like disappeared. And I was like, well, that was kind of strange, you know what I mean? But he had asked for help. So the next day, I got a hold of my husband, and I'm just like, hey, I connected, let her know, that he was there. I'm going to try to connect a little bit more, but, I was just so tired that there was no way that I could really do anything to be able to help her. And so as we're sitting there talking, and I literally hear footsteps coming down my hallway. And as these footsteps are coming down my hallway, I'm sitting on the couch right there. So I'm sitting on the couch, and as I'm sitting on the couch, I start feeling the impression of somebody sitting there next to me. And as I'm sitting there next to him, I'm still talking to my husband on the phone, and I'm letting him know that, he showed up. And I said, I think I feel him actually sitting next to me on the couch. I literally heard him walking down the hallway. And as he's sitting there, all of a sudden, I am literally like seeing through his eyes. I am experiencing his last moments. And I see that he's in a garage. I literally see the weapon of unaliving in his hand. He is crying. I can feel the despair, the sadness that he's feeling. I can feel everything going on inside of him and how he was feeling like a little child, just had that much fear inside of him. He was crying out to his fiancée. I could feel that all he wanted to be was held, but he had already been drinking, so it made her afraid to approach him because of the depths of feelings that he was experiencing at the time. And I see him there, and he's seeing like out of his eyes like the movie Pulp Fiction, and he can't focus on anything. As I told you, he had been drinking. He was on his pain meds, and everything in his mind just seemed somewhat twisted. It was like he couldn't focus on anything. And as he's standing there, and he's crying out to his fiancée, I see the weapon of unaliving there in his hand. And his finger is on the trigger, but he's just having literally a hard time focusing. He's like having a hard time standing there in one place. And I see that his body flinches. Well, when he flinches, he pulled the trigger. And next thing I know, I am literally standing next to him as he's outside of his body, looking at his body on the ground. Instant sober. Just, it's everything that was inside of him is just gone because, he's no longer attached to his body. And when that happened, he realized that, what have I done? And as he's standing there, I could feel the guilt, the sadness, every emotion. I was attached to it all. And I was literally crying like a 2-year-old that thought their whole world was crushed. I was bawling. I was on the phone with my husband, and I was just bawling, and I just said, hold on. He's showing me everything, and I am literally feeling all the emotions that he is feeling, how the sadness is of what he's done. He didn't realize he was going to do it. It was more of an accident, but he did do it. He realized it had to do with the medication he was on and what he had been drinking and the combination of everything. And the realization and the guilt was just incredible. I've never in my life experienced that level of sadness in my life. I was just crying and crying. And I literally had to tell my husband, I said, hold on a minute. I'm going to have to make him leave because I can't deal with this. It was just so overwhelming and strong. And I literally had to remove him and take him out of my house because I could not handle the energy. And literally, as soon as I got him out of the house, boom, I was just back to being normal. I wasn't crying anymore. It was just so intense, the feelings that I was feeling. And it was as if I was the one. He was showing me what he's feeling. And I realized at that time that his fiancée, that was what she was going through. She was feeling, even though he was trying to help, he never crossed over. He felt so much guilt for what he did. He kept hanging around her like he's trying to help her. But in actuality, he's not helping her because he's still connected to the emotions of this world. Even though he does not have his body, he still has the connections because he hasn't been able to cross over to let go of those emotions. And so I tried to get a hold of the fiancée to let her know. It was just, at the time, she was just having too much issues with it. And the fact that she just couldn't even deal with what was going on. And I was trying to get a hold. I couldn't talk to her. And I'm like, well, he did ask. He said, please, please help me. And so I'm like, well, I told my husband, I said, I'm going to try to help him and see what I can do to help him cross over so that he can get a new perspective. Because I know that when a person crosses over, they actually get the perspective of 360 degrees of why these things happen and the purpose of these things happen, and what you were supposed to learn in the process of these things happening. Otherwise, you're connected to only the emotions of everything that's happened here because you can only see the single view that you had when you were in your body. So That night I went into deep meditation, and I called for him and I called for him. And I could feel that he didn't want to come back. He was just still having such a difficult time with it. I could feel that he didn't want to come back, and because of that, I just kept calling for him. I tried to stay patient, and have this ability, and I'm very thankful for it, as I have angels that I could call on when I'm in this void, and they will actually help me out. And so I did call for Angel Michael to please help me out so that we can bring him over so I can at least talk to him. So next thing I know, I actually had him brought in front of me in this void, and I'm talking to him, and I'm telling him how he needs to cross over so that he can understand. And I was trying, he kept telling me, no, I gotta help her, I gotta help her. And I said, you're not helping her right now. You're making it difficult to where she's never going to be able to get over you. You want her to move on. You have got to cross over so you can understand everything, get a higher perspective of it, more light within you, and then you can come back and then you can help her. And he's like, no, I gotta help her, I gotta stay here. He did not want to cross over. And you can't force anybody to cross over. There are some that are like really dark, I found out. And in that case, I literally can ask the angels to come and remove him, remove whatever that is that's there. You know what I mean? But with him, he was sad. And so I actually, when I'm in that void, as I told you, it's a connection between worlds. I actually asked for family members who have crossed over to come and help him cross over. So literally, I was watching family members come and they're walking over to him, and they wrapped their arms around him, and he started bawling, just like I was when I was feeling all the emotions that he was feeling. And they wrapped their arms around him, and they told him, come on, come with me, come with me. Because I kept trying to explain to him he needs to cross over. He'll understand after he crosses over, to be able to put into perspective everything that's happened in this lifetime and why it has happened in this lifetime. And he was sad and he was crying, but they wrapped their arms around him. I literally watched them take him into the light. And when they took him into the light, all of a sudden I could feel it. It was just, it was gone. I knew that he had literally crossed over. So it was probably about 3 days later after this had taken place that I'm laying in my bed in the morning. And as I told you, I get a lot of it when I'm half asleep and half awake. I'm kind of in between worlds at that time, which is a theta state. Everybody goes into it twice a day, whether you want to or not. And that's before you go to sleep, right before you go to sleep, and right as you're waking up. That theta state is that hypnotic state. When you're in hypnosis, we take you to the theta state. And so anyways, all of a sudden I see his face in mine. And as I see his face in mine, he says to me, thank you. I didn't understand. And then he left. It was that quick. And I was like, wow, this is the first time I've ever helped somebody to where they've literally come back and thanked me for it. Because he had asked me to help him. And he said, thank you. He didn't understand that when he crossed over, he would understand the purpose of everything in this lifetime. Because you don't until you pass over to where you're literally being able to see that 360-degree angle of everything that's happened in your life. And so here's the thing. The thing about everything is that it was later on, it was probably about 2 weeks later, I literally was able to go out of state where my husband was at and actually talk to the fiance. And as I was talking to her, I said, how are you feeling now? And she goes, oh my gosh. She goes, I feel incredible. I feel great. And I said, so when did you start feeling this? And we went back, and she's kind of pulling out her calendar, and she's pointing out the day. And I said, yeah, that is the day that I helped him cross over. She says, all of a sudden I felt lighter. I didn't feel him around me anymore. My emotions weren't being controlled. I wasn't feeling those strong emotions. And she goes, now I feel like I can actually move on. And she thanked me for that too. But, all it was he had asked me, and that's why I did try to help him. I realize with experiencing all this that there's so many people that get on the edge and they think that this is the end of it and that they need to just get out of this pain. But I need to tell everyone, you just gotta hold on. You hear that song, hold on for one more day. It's just literally you need to hold on because things are always going to change. You know, even when you're in the lowest depths, you need to hold on. And if you're having problems and you just feel like you just cannot make it out of whatever hole that you feel you're in, please do seek help. Seek help, talk to people. Hotlines are everywhere. Do something to where you don't have to feel this guilt and this sadness that I experienced. I never want to feel that way again. It was the deepest, darkest, lowest feeling that anybody can ever feel. The sadness, the feeling like, why didn't I hold on? Why didn't I change this? You know, the what ifs, what ifs, what ifs. Everything was there, and they experience it when you take yourself that way. And I want to please, please, especially now that these energies are changing, you're going to have a lot of people around you that are going to feel helpless. They're going to feel hopeless, like nothing is going to change. Be there for them. Try to be strong with them. Have them, help them get help. You know, do whatever you can do. And if you're the one that is experiencing this and you have the sadness and you just want to leave, please, please find help. You don't want to ever feel the way that I felt during this experience. It was one of the most difficult paranormal experiences that I've ever felt in my life. It was the hardest thing that I've ever had to go through. So I plead with you, find help. You know, there is brightness, there is shining. You will find that the world will become a brighter place if you just hold on. Don't lose. Okay? You just keep holding on. All right? Please do like and subscribe, and we'll get more videos out. Thanks.